Hello, my name is Melissa,
And I'm Allie.
and this is Liverpool, USA.
We're best friends, and this is a best friends podcast.
Today on the agenda, we're going to talk about art.
Yeah, talking about art, baby.
I am pretty excited about this because
Me
I
too.
am an artist in many ways, or I consider
Yeah,
myself an artist in many ways.
yeah, absolutely, you are.
Yeah.
I would say you're an artist much more in the traditional sense. Um, you like draw stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you do art, and I like what I wrote in the notes is I'm not really an artist in the traditional sense, but I am definitely a creative person. And you, I think, are more of an artist in the traditional sense, as well as just a general creative person in some
Yeah.
of the same ways
Which
that I am.
which I think is interesting, and I think definitely later we'll talk more about what that means. Because I think that's an interesting, like, oh, what is an artist versus just like a creative person? I think that was a really interesting thing to a really interesting concept. So, but
Yeah.
first, I see on your little notes here you put a little note about my upcoming art, or maybe I should start with a little bit more. I'm too excited about what I'm about my current projects, but I'll start back a little bit more. So and just kind of talk about myself as an artist. Um so I've been drawing pretty much since I could pick up a pencil. And I think that is why I'm at a point where I think I could say I'm, like, I don't know, good, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely
and
you are.
and I think a lot of people, who are like, "Oh, I'm just not good," but all I can think every time is like, "Well, it's because I just started drawing and, like, never stopped." And that's the only reason why I'm at where I am today. So I just wanted to say that. I don't only draw though, although that is my main, like, traditional, I guess you could say, medium of art, like physical, I don't know, painting, drawing, stuff like that. I do a lot of pencil drawing. I've also been doing quite a bit of digital drawing, and that has been super fun to learn. And then I've also been a musician for quite some time. Not, professional or anything. I haven't quite reached that level, but I've been playing instruments. I've been passionate about music for a long time. And I'm also a writer. And I think that all of those things, of course, classify as art. So, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much everything that I'm passionate about revolves around art. And I just have, like, an artist brain. You know those personality quizzes that you take or whatever, and they tell you what kind of personality you are, what kind of brain you have. I just have an art brain. That's just how my brain works.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah. I don't have a science brain. I don't have a math brain. I don't have, like, I don't know, what are other what are other brains? I have a very artsy brain. Um,
That's interesting that you said that. I put something about this way later in the notes. But people always say this. They always say you either have like an arty brain or like a mathy brain. Um and I don't know, I think it's kind of a common perception that math and art are kind of like opposites of each other. Um and that your brain is either like super artsy or super like analytical and like science driven and math driven. But I think really they're very similar, especially
Definitely.
math in like when you get more advanced in math, and it stops being about what you can memorize or like how very physical things work. Once you get higher up and you start doing like proof based mathematics, I find that it's a lot more philosophical and a lot more creative, which I think is something that people don't really know about math. It's not really taught like that until you're in upper level university math. Um, so yeah, that's I don't know, that's like one little thing I wanted to say about math and art, which yeah, it's they're more similar. I'm trying to find I'm stalling. So I'm trying to find this quote that
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you though. Like they're definitely intertwined in a lot of ways. Like, math is, used in like architecture, which could, be an art, architecture is art. Music is art, and there's, math is everywhere in music. So, yeah, they're definitely intertwined. But also, yeah, definitely also seen a lot as like separates, like the sciences and then the arts, are like categorized two very different ways.
This what I'm about to read from is G.H. Hardy's A Mathematician's Apology. Um, and this is like a sort of a rant, I guess, that G.H. Hardy wrote in the 40s about what it means to be a mathematician. It's like a whole book, but this is part of it. It's the chapter starts, a mathematician, like a painter or a poet, is a maker of patterns. And then later on in the same chapter, he talks about the mathematician's patterns, like the painters or the poets, must be beautiful. They must the ideas, like the colors or the words, must fit together in a harmonious way. And he calls this the aesthetic appreciation of mathematics. Um, and there's this whole concept of, beautiful mathematics versus ugly mathematics. And lots of mathematicians sort of chime in on this. And a very famous mathematician, Paul Erdős, he called this like proofs from the book is what he called it. And the book is like both capitalized. And he would say that the book was written by God, and God proved all of mathematics very like beautifully and elegantly without any like ugly algebra. And if you find a really great proof for something, then that means it came like directly from God's book.
Interesting. I
Um,
mean, yeah, art is everywhere. Art is
yeah,
inescapable, much as is math. So,
yeah, yeah. Anyways, that was I meant to talk about that later, but I'm glad we talked about it now.
yeah, yeah. No, I think
Yeah,
that definitely that's a really interesting way to think about it.
yeah, yeah. I too am a very creative person. I write a bunch just like you do, and I also do music. Um, for anybody who doesn't know, I have done like orchestra stuff forever, and then now I just teach violin. But I also, like listen to music a lot. I'm very like into music as like a whole side thing. And you are too. I mean, I would say you are even more than I am.
It's like a personality trait for me at this point is the music side of me. Like
Yeah,
if anyone that like, "Oh, tell me a little bit about yourself." Like I can't not say music in that answer. Yeah, I've
yeah.
played flute since 6th grade, and I've played bass since sometime in high school. Still looking for, I'm kind of forever looking for a band or like a band to join or like someone to be in a band with or yeah, I don't know. Which you'd think wouldn't be so hard in a place as big as Portland, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of just like a pursuit. Um I guess I could talk more about my current artistic pursuits. Um right now, actually by the time that this is airing, it will already be the first one will already be out, but I am releasing in the month of October four in all, a set of prints, and they're digital art prints, they're original digital art prints, and they're going to be two-headed animals. And I will only spoil the first one because it's going to be out by the time this airs. But the first one's going to be a two-headed cat. It's a two-headed black cat, and I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, I'm excited whenever I can finish an art piece and then print it out and then put it out there for other people to look at and also buy if they want to, which is a super fun milestone to reach as an artist. I think is when you can, I don't know, sell your art, which obviously isn't the point of making art, but it's still a fun thing to be able to do because it's like, oh, this is finished, and it could, it's out there, and it just feels like a
Yeah.
big deal. Yeah, and I thought that these ones were very fitting specifically for October because it's the Halloween month, and they're these two-headed animals, so they're a little bit, I guess, grotesque to some people, maybe. I don't know, like different. It's kind of inspired by me being a twin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where most of the inspiration came from. And recently I had just been kind of, I don't know, a little bit more fascinated with that kind of thing and like specifically the two-headed animal kind of thing. And then I thought, oh, it would be kind of fun to draw that kind of thing. And like with the cat specifically, it has two complete heads. Like, four ears, four eyes, two noses, like two complete heads, which I don't think happens in real life. Like, I was looking up
No.
pictures of two-headed animals, and the cats that I saw, it's kind of like one head, but it's like messed up because they're like two heads, but they're merged together. So for the cat specifically, it's more of like a mythical animal that I made up. It's more like a Cerberus type thing, but only with two heads. But I think it's kind of cool, and they're all gonna kind of match. I used colors that all go together. I used my four favorite colors, which are purple, green, red, and black. And yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. So I'm excited about that. And I
Yeah.
think that's my biggest recent art thing. I'm kind of constantly looking for opportunities to write, looking for opportunities to play music, stuff like that. But yeah, I've been more into the digital drawing recently, and that's been super fun. Oh, and that's on my Etsy, by the way. Um,
Yeah, we can put a link to your Etsy like in our description.
yeah, for sure. Yes.
Yeah, I love your digital art. I You have stuff on Redbubble as well.
Oh yeah, I do have a couple things on. I wanna beef that up a little bit more too. I mean we could like link my Redbubble too, but I definitely want to add more
Yeah.
stuff to that.
Yeah, my personal favorite, although I haven't seen the two-headed animals yet and I'm very excited about them. But I have your arcade carpet as my phone case.
Oh yeah.
And actually, just today, one of my students was like, "Oh, I really like your phone case," and I was like, "Thanks, my friend made it."
Oh, that makes me feel so special. I love that. People like my art.
They do. I get so many compliments on my
Oh,
phone case.
yeah. That's so cute. And I am gonna I guess I'm gonna say this because I just thought of it and I started to say it, and I'm not throwing shade at you specifically. So I just wanna like I just want to put that out there first that I like understand and I'm not like gonna be sour about it. But one of the things that I thought was interesting when I started releasing art is actually this started with when I had a radio show in college and I was really excited about it. And so, of course, we told everyone about it. But then, like, none of my friends really listened to it, and kind of the same thing happened when I like released my postcards were the first like art prints that I released, and all my friends were like, "Oh my god, that's awesome, so cool," and then no one bought one. And I was like, that's fine. I don't know, like
Yeah.
probably sounds like I'm being really sour. It's just I don't know. It's just an
No.
observation. I just think it's at this point I kind of just think it's I don't know, interesting, but like I get it. Like I don't want people to I mean, of course if you just want to buy my art because it's me, that's fine. That's cool. Like please buy my art. It's very flattering. But on the other hand, like if I have friends and I release something and they just like don't want it or they like don't have a place for it or whatever, like whatever. That's fine too. But I don't know. That was just an observation, I guess.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. I wanted to buy your postcards actually, but I
You don't have to say that.
could not. No, I know, but
Okay.
um no, I think it's hard to like, all of your friends right now are like young people trying to
Yeah, like no one
get their
has
life
money.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do, I think it is important to support your friends' art. Whether that's like talking about it or
Yeah.
actually buying it. Because yeah, I know the same thing. Like, I mean, I don't have anything that is for sale ever, but I like write stuff all the time. I have a website that I write my stuff on, and it's interesting because I do like post about it sometimes, and I just like know that most people don't read it,
Yeah,
which is
isn't
fine.
that interesting? I don't know. I feel like the more stuff that I do and post out there, and then you see people that will like hype you up, I don't know, or like seem to hype you up, but then like they don't read what you put out there. They don't, like buy, or they don't listen. And it just, I don't know. I don't know. Although I should also point out it's it is great and important also to like hype up your artist friends in other ways. Like even if you like share it or like it or just say something about it, or you know like any way that you can compliment or exposure or anything like that is awesome. So hype up your art friends even if you can't buy their stuff or access their stuff in any other way. If you have art friends, give them attention because they want it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
this kind of is a good way to segue into like art as a job versus as a hobby.
Oh yeah.
Because yeah, you know, part of what you're talking about, right, is you're doing art as a job, like you're selling your art. And so it's not just do people like it, but it's do people want to purchase it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that can be kind of a hard transition, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I still consider it more of a hobby just because it's not something that I spend, like 40 hours a week on or anything. Like, I spend quite a bit of time on it, but I'm not dedicating, like all of my time to it, I guess. And also, it's not my main source of income. And so I do still consider it more of a hobby. I would love it if it was my job. I mean it's definitely my goal to someday build a base, a presence large enough that I could make a living on just doing artistic, my artistic pursuits. But that's a hard thing to do, especially we have a very um like 8 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, set schedule kind of expectation of in our society, and it's hard to have things like health insurance if you don't have that kind of job, um and stuff like that. And so it yeah, pursuing art as a career is super difficult. It's not the norm, and it's not like the expectation. So our society doesn't really have the uh like the system for that set up to make that work really well for everyone. Which I was actually just ranting today, so I won't like go off about it again. But I have a lot of feelings, and I have since like high school, basically, when I kind of realized that I would have to work for the rest of my life. So I have a lot of feelings about the like grind job mindset that our society has, and the expectation to have the 40-hour work week job, the 9 to 5 job, because that just kind of doesn't work for me. I don't like that concept. And no matter how hard I try to normalize it for myself, it just doesn't work for me. Like the system that I am trying to work within right now is not a system that works 100% for me. And at this point I've realized that I'm going to have to deal with it anyway, and you know, and so now it's about finding the balance of how to satisfy myself and still pursue my passions while also working within and, you know, maybe in like using the current system that I'm in a way that benefits me as much as possible. So yeah, that's basically like the summary of my rant earlier, but I was kind of like, you know,
Yes.
with my job search that I've been in and everything, it's been way on my mind. But yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
system that's like built to serve artists super well.
Yeah, I think that as well. I very like a long time ago in probably I don't know, maybe high school, I guess. There was a time that I thought that I would go into music instead of math. And the number one thing I heard from every adult in my life was, "You're not going to make any money if you do that." um, and you know, I am happy with the path I chose. I think that the pressure of being a musician wouldn't have been something that I wanted to do all the time. And the amount that I did music, even just in college, and how intense it was in college, made me not like it very much for a while. And so I know that doing music like professionally, you know, like going into like orchestra playing or even teaching music, I think a lot of that would have been too much pressure for me, like the pressure to perform and all of that kind of thing, would have made me dislike music a lot, and I would have lost a lot from that. But the number one reason that I changed my mind, changed my plan, was not because I foresaw any of that. It's because everybody told me you'll never make money, you'll never be able to support yourself doing that.
Yeah, and
Um,
unfortunately everything has to be about making money.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I went into a much more practical field of being a mathematician,
Yeah.
which in theory is more practical. Sometimes it feels less practical,
Yeah.
but in theory it is more practical. And it's definitively, you know, as we sort of talked about already, not an artist job. Like, you know, I would not consider the work I do as a mathematician to be the work of an artist.
Yeah, I mean it's you know there's the arts like I said before, you know, like the arts, the
Yeah,
sciences. If we want to next, if you want to like finish your thoughts or whatever, I think this is leading into we can talk a little bit about like what we think art is if you want to.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I guess the end of my thought is right now I am in grad school to be a mathematician. And most of the work that I do through that is math stuff. But my goal is to focus a lot more on writing projects, a lot of which are about math or somehow related to math, but are still creative projects in my mind because they're writing projects. And that is my career goal, is to be writing things. And so
Me
I
too.
too,
Like
yeah,
different kinds of things, but honestly, me
yeah,
too.
yeah. And so yeah, I'm working on trying to transition my career from a career that's not really art into a career that is a lot more art art like, I guess.
Yeah, which I think is more fitting. I think it makes sense for like the way that you're going right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, so what is art? I actually um am writing kind of just like a it's not really an essay. I just kind of wrote a bunch of it down in a document because I think that what is art, you know, is a question that has been around for a long time and that a lot of people can argue about. So I kind of came up with my own little theory. It could already exist. I don't know if it already exists. But my kind of framework, and it has a lot of holes too, you know, it's not perfect. But kind of the framework that I came up with for what my definition of art is it has to have an intention. it has to have some form of a creation process, and it has to be able to be interpreted in a way. Even if no one ever saw the finished product or anything, it still has to be able to be interpreted by someone. And so that's really vague, but that's kind of like dance fits in that category. Like you have, the dancer that is creating, the way that their body moves. You have the intention behind that, and like how they want it to look, what they want it to, what they what they want it to portray. And then you also have the people who are viewing the dance and how they react to it. And I think that drawing, all the ways where you think about art, of course, applies to that, drawing, painting, sculpting, everything like that. But I think that that also could contain like the culinary arts. Like you have an intention when you make food. There's a way that you want it to look and taste and things like that. And there's a creation process with food, and there's an interpretation process with food. How are people going to react to it when they taste it? When they taste it, and so I think that in that way, it actually kind of expands what art is, because art becomes, basically anything man-made. I think becomes art under that, which I think, to me, in my brain, when I think what is art, is accurate. I think that the arts are involved in pretty much everything that we do. And so that's kind of my like vague definition of what I think art is. The
I have
biggest
a question
hole,
for you.
yeah.
I can let you finish before I ask my question.
The one thing that I was going to say is the biggest hole that I have thought of so far in that definition is whether or not humanity is art, like if a person can be art. And I think that that depends on whether or not you believe that humanity was created with any sort of intention.
Ooh,
Because if you are like religious, say, and you believe in a god that created humans, then humanity could be art. But if not, if we just
God's
like,
art.
yeah, if we just like randomly, happened or developed from something or whatever, and there's no real intention for us being here, then, then that's not, then we're not art. So I think that's like kind of the biggest hole so far. There could be other ones I don't
Interesting.
remember. Yeah, I don't have like my notes. My essay, in like air quotes, so far is pretty much just like a lot of random words and sentences thrown on a Word document that's like just thoughts about it that I've just like frantically scribbled. So, yeah. What was your
I
question?
My question is, so does that mean that mathematics is art?
Yeah, I think so because uh I'm trying to just like think of what I know of math, but I think that, well, math, let me think. I'm trying to well, does it have, I mean, there's an intention with math, and there's
See,
interpretation with math. Maybe
I think
maybe I
I
don't
think
know.
the
That's weird
like
to think.
immediate thing I'm considering when I think about that, which
Mhm.
also, sorry to make everything about math,
No,
but
that's fine. I mean,
it's just who
you're
I
like
am.
neck deep in math right now.
Yeah,
So like it makes sense that all your thoughts, but it's actually really interesting. I think that's like,
yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, "Oh, does it? Like math as a concept, like does it count as art?" I don't know.
Because I think and this is a big question in mathematics, like, and sort of, I guess, the philosophy of math, which is, do we think that math was discovered by humans or created by humans? Um,
Yeah, and I read, didn't you? No, I found it on my own. You didn't even send it to me. I I found that I found that article that talked about that, and I thought it was actually
oh yeah,
really interesting because it's like yes and no.
yeah. Which
Yeah.
there's definitely arguments for both, right? Like, there's a lot about math that seems to be very um just the like describing the way the world already
Yeah,
works.
it's like math is an explanation for things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's also, I feel like it's a little bit undeniable that there is parts of math that humans have really created. Like there are parts of math, especially higher math, um, that really feels to me like it's something that we like a reality that we've created that's not really actually part of real reality.
Okay, which you obviously understand math a lot more than I do. So I don't know like what kinds of math fall under like that category. The math that I can think about, the the like when I said earlier when I was like math seems like an explanation of things. Um it's like what I mean, if you can explain it, maybe it'll be like too like like maybe I would have to understand more about math to get it, but from how I understand math, it seems to be, things that kind of explain things, how things move and work and, are like all mathematically explained, but how could there be things that like we made up? Like what's something that you think a math that like we made up, if that makes sense?
Um, yeah. Well, um, I guess what I'll like the immediate thing that comes to mind that I know I could explain off the fly
Mhm.
is so during undergrad I did research for my senior project, and I did it in graph theory, which graph theory has lots of very practical applications as well as somewhat unpractical applications. But the area that I focused on within graph theory is called graph pebbling, and it's sort of this idea. Have you ever played the game Mancala?
Oh my god, I love Mancala.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one with all
So
the like marbles and yeah, I love that game.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the idea of my
Oh,
project was
interesting.
um so like a graph in the sense that I'm talking about it looks like a constellation, like points that are connected with lines, and it could be any array of points and any of them could be connected, one could be connected to lots of them, like that kind of thing. Okay, so imagine playing Mancala on one of those where each point is like a space where you could leave pebbles, and each line that connects things are like ways you could go.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so like the regular Mancala board is like a circle, and you can just go around, and all of them are connected like in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if there were like different paths you could go around, or like from one spot you could go to multiple different places or something like that. Um, and like the rules of Mancala are you like have to leave a pebble behind everywhere you go. So that's sort of like roughly the rules, and I played around with like how many pebbles you would need to get different places on different types of graphs, basically. Um, and like we don't know how that's applicable to anything.
Okay.
Like I guess like you can represent it physically, like you could draw it out and like have physical marbles that you're like putting around,
Yeah.
but it's not like really describing something that you find in nature, the same
Okay.
way that like physics is math that describes real stuff that happens.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting. That's an interesting new like view to look at it with.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of math that's kind of similar to that kind of thing, where they do all this math and it's cool and everyone's like, what is this used for? And it's like, I don't know. And then years and years and years in the future, they find a use for it. Like there's some example, I think, in knot theory, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's the mathematics behind knots, like that you
Oh,
tie,
okay.
which again, like that you can model it in real life, but you don't know like sort of what it means is not like a physical process because we're not talking about like the physics of a knot. It's
Oh.
like the like mathematically how many ways can you tie a knot with like this much string or like whatever.
Mm.
Um, and they actually found some uses for that like way later in like neurons, I think, and like neurons kind of like get tangled in your brain or something, so you can use knot theory to like know how you would untangle them. I don't know the specifics of that, so I'm really kind of talking out
Yeah,
of
yeah.
my
Yeah, I'm sure we need to have a whole um session in the near future just about math.
yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
I could talk about lots of math things forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll stop for now because I definitely have like been talking a lot about it.
That's okay. I don't
um
know if there's any. I mean, of course, we could also talk about art forever. Was there anything specific about art that we really wanted to like make sure that we say? I don't know. I kind of went over like my whole thing and even like my theory, which is really just a starting point. It's not the end, definition of what I think art is. I think it's really just like a starting point for a conversation. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
I really do like that definition. And I think even just the process of trying to think of a definition of art is really valuable. I think it gives you like a lot of perspective on what all these artists are up to anyways, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm not thinking of anything else specific to say, so before I do you want to introduce our end segment that we plan on continuing throughout these podcasts?
Yeah, so in our first season of Liverpool, um I had just read the book Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs by Chuck Klosterman. And I do actually think that his name is pronounced Klosterman, but I always
Uh,
said it in my head as Klosterman,
yeah,
and I don't know if I can really stop now.
Mr. Chuck.
Mr. Chuck.
Chuck K.
Yeah, Chucky K.
Oh no.
Uh so anyways, I had just read that book, Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs, and in it, there's this list of like 26 questions, maybe, that he lists as like 26 questions to ask somebody before you fall in love with them. And they're really weird questions and like funny a little bit and just like good questions. And so we talked about them a bunch the last time that we recorded this. And since then, I have received a deck of these questions. Like there's a whole package of more than 26.
I'm
Like
looking at
there's
it right now, and it's not just a question. Okay, I really want to say that
no.
because you posted, like, you sent me a little picture, and it is a
Yeah,
scenario. This is not
it is.
just a question. This is
It
world
is.
building scenario.
I know, which is why I really appreciate Chuck as an author. Um, we could I tried to tell myself to be brief in the notes. I was like, please give a brief intro to this, and I'm talking forever. But anyways, so there's all these questions, and yes, they're not just like a simple question ever. They're always like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be fun for at the end of each episode, we talk about one of them.
Okay. Do you want me to read this, or do you want to read it?
Would you like to read it?
Sure, I'll read it. I haven't read through the
Okay.
whole thing yet, so this is a first read through. Okay, so it
Okay.
says a major earthquake occurs in California. After the damage is assessed, workers discover a strange type of clay that was exposed by the fault line. Immediately, certain workers report a bizarre sensation. Merely touching the clay gives them a euphoric, almost sexual sense of well being. They only need to touch it once and feel great forever. Soon, thousands of people begin flocking to the clay to experience it. About 1 in 4 people feel the euphoric effect regardless of gender, age, or nationality. The rest of the populace feel nothing at all. Scientists who study the atomic structure of the clay realize this substance could also serve as the cleanest, most completely efficient fuel ever discovered. 1 pound of clay could power all of Los Angeles for 10 years. However, those who have been personally and spiritually affected by the clay implore the government not to pursue this avenue. They insist that using the clay as energy will destroy mankind's ability to feel joy. They cannot explain what this means, but they overwhelmingly and specifically suggest that this is literally what will happen. In fact, many of them claim they will attempt to overthrow the US government if the clay is misused in any way whatsoever. And then the question is, you are in the second term of your tenure as President of the United States. The clay has no effect on you whatsoever. Would you support an initiative that allows 5% of the clay to be mined? So I'm assuming this means like mined specifically to be used as fuel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will also say that I just like chose a random one. Like I didn't choose this one specifically, but it is, I don't know. Anyways,
I don't know. I don't know either.
It's interesting. So yeah, first of all, bold of you to assume I would ever be the president, because I would not.
Yeah.
But second of all, this is interesting because I feel like, yeah, you kind of have to just like take people's word for it, which is something I almost never do.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't know that I would.
Yeah, like because you can't
believe
experience this, so you don't know if you'll believe it. Okay, I do have 2 things immediately that I thought though when I read it.
Okay.
The first one was, of course people will experience joy. They've always experienced joy, and they always will. They don't need this whatever this substance is to experience joy. And the second one, the second thing that popped into my head was, I mean, it's only 5% that you would be mining for this fuel, and it would be like clean and perfect. And of course, I would do it. Listen, we are in the middle of a climate crisis.
Yeah.
And I recently just did like a piece for a local community station about this, where I interviewed Portland's local Sunrise Movement chapter and talked about it. And I've been recently becoming a lot more interested, I guess you could say, in our current state of our climate and what is, and especially what is not being done about it. And after reading this question, like if in this scenario we're in the same exact earth that we're on right now, then like of course I would do that. I mean, maybe I would have to make up, if I was a president, I would, because there's campaigns, there's the media, there's, you can push ideas and stuff, it happens. I feel like I would kind of set up, a committee or whatever to better educate, society about exactly what the state of our climate is like and what needs to be done. And I feel like if there was more of an urgency, like if 25% of people approximately, because it's like 1 in 4 get this or whatever, like feel the joy or whatever. But like, like if that was like only like 25% of people that would be pissed off, I don't know. I feel like it would be worth it just because of like the state that the climate is in right now. And especially if it gets to be used for both things. It's like only 5%. Like it's not like it's completely taking all of it and we won't let anyone else touch it forever. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like, yes, of course. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably would too, because I think what this, well, I can't tell if the implication here is that this is like magic of some kind.
I don't know.
Or if it's like psychological. But anyways, I think sort of what the question is maybe like making me think of, I don't know, is what does it mean that like we no longer be able to feel joy? Like, is if we take all of this like to be completely real or whatever, and like somehow magically it really does take away our like ability to feel joy, like what does that mean? Because there are lots of other emotions that are good that aren't joy.
Yeah, although I mean, there's that whole theory, where you can't have light without darkness, stuff like that. Um so I feel like, and I mean, joy is also a synonym. I don't know if that's specific enough to be able to categorize like an entire group of feeling, but if you weren't able to feel joy, then also you would have to think that no one was able to feel whatever the opposite of joy is. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a weird one because I think that it doesn't really work that way. Like I don't think you could just like take away joy. I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking too, because I'm like, well, okay, if we don't feel joy, but yeah, like we avert a climate crisis, um, are we still safe? Yes. Are we still have shelter and warmth and food? Yes.
Yeah. And
Um,
also, I just thought of as well, um, it could be like one of those things where these people that experience this, it's like something that they've never experienced before on like a level that they couldn't have imagined. So now they think that, the joy that they've experienced over the rest of their life was like nothing compared to this. But
like drugs.
yeah. Yeah, essentially. But also, I think that it would be important to also think about that the like 75% or whatever of people who this does not affect, including the president, us in this scenario, will never experience that, and therefore it doesn't matter, I guess. Like,
Yeah, what yeah,
yeah,
you got to like do what's good for the pack, not what's good for like the outlier.
yeah, and like you'll still experience joy that to you feels incredible. Just because you haven't experienced the same joy that these other people are experiencing doesn't mean that like you won't also experience things that feel incredibly good to you. And I feel, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like you'll never experience that, and like there are things that like I can't experience other people's feelings, like pain or joy or whatever. And so I can only like judge and live by like the things that I feel. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if that makes any sense. We're definitely going off here, which I know that was the intention of this. But but yeah, right? Like then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it is. Yeah, it's like, what does it mean to not have joy anymore? I think that's kind of a flawed generalization of something, I
Yeah.
guess.
And
I don't know. It's like,
it's not taking joy away from people, right? It's just giving certain people a specific amount of joy that apparently other people can experience.
well, it's saying, but if you use the clay for energy, then mankind will it will destroy mankind's ability to feel joy.
Well, that's what the people who
Yeah,
experience
that's
the
what they
joy
say.
say will happen.
Yeah, but I feel like this clay is some kind of like drug. Like it's
Yeah.
like getting
Oh
people
yeah.
to like be out of their
It
mind, you
has to
know?
be. Yeah. Yeah. Which is even more of a reason to mayhaps limit it to the population.
Mayhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I if I was the president, which again, as I said, I would never be.
Yeah.
But if I was, I would absolutely use the clay.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah.
Which perhaps is another reason that I should not be the president. But
Maybe. I'm sure there are many reasons why both of us should not be the president. And and that's just the truth. I could not
yeah,
absolutely not imagine myself as the president. That's a whole nother conversation. But
yeah, me too,
yeah.
me too. But yeah, anyways, that's our first Klosterman or Klosterman, if I really try to say it right. Um, that's our first Klosterman question. I am looking forward to lots of other ones. There's a few that I want to revisit that we have already talked about
Okay.
before. Uh, so we'll see. We'll see which one we get next.
Yeah,
But
I'm
yeah,
excited and
that's a
scared.
fun segment. I know.
Maybe a little
Some of them
bit.
are ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, anyways, that's, I guess we should probably wrap up now. You can find us on YouTube under the name Liverpool USA. And
Mayhaps
until
we'll
next
make
time.
other social media maybe too. I don't know. That might be a good idea
Yeah,
actually. A Twitter? Who we'll see.
I would like, yeah, a Twitter could be good.
Yeah.
If we do that, we'll put a link to it in
Yes.
the
All the links
description.
will be down there to click.
Yes.
Okay.
So until next time, I guess. I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.